am I good enough? Will people care? Does my story come off authentic enough? Those who are doing quote unquote brave things are still doing it with fear. Hey, I'm Sam, and this is The Phoenix Table. Raw stories from the fire for people rising out of the messy middle. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts, pull up a chair, and join us, because we all rise better together. Over the last couple weeks, I have been openly sharing my own solo journey, my own story, the struggle of grief and grit and growth and everything in between. And so many people have been so kind in reaching out and saying, thank you for sharing your story. But the other thing that I've been hearing from a lot of individuals is, wow, you're so brave. And that's what I want to talk about today, is this concept of bravery and what it means to be brave, and also what it means when we say someone is being brave, because it's two different sides of a very similar coin. There's a really big disconnect, for me especially, when someone says you're so brave, because I don't feel brave. I still have a lot of fears and a lot of doubts. Every time I come on here and I do a solo story, am I good enough? Will people care? Does my story come off authentic enough? Are people going to connect with it? Will they judge me for it? And I think that the internal journey that's happening here that people don't see is the fact that despite all of those doubts, despite all of that, negative self-talk, those who are out there putting their story, bearing themselves to the world, they're just doing it anyway. And so it's important to kind of think about the fact that bravery is not the absence of fear. It's showing up in spite of it. The actual definition of bravery is something like the state of having or showing mental or moral strength in the face of danger, fear, or difficulty. And if you're a big Brené Brown fan, she says that courage or bravery is about vulnerability and showing up despite that fear. So when I reflected on how people kept telling me I was brave, a couple things came up. One was this idea that we have this unspoken societal handshake that says that we are not meant to be vulnerable, be authentic, be open with our personal stories in a professional setting. Meaning that, hey, we know you have a life, but we only want to see the clean parts of it. It's not safe for us to put out there in the world that we are messy human beings. And I will not sit here and tell you that, oh, I was not worried about that at all. You just heard me a minute ago say how much I doubt and continue to doubt whether or not I'm really making an impact and will someone even listen to this and resonate with it? But it's the idea that we're doing it anyway that makes people feel slightly uncomfortable, but also makes them act in admiration of you for doing this, right? And that's the other side of that coin. So as the person doing, I am doing with fear. I am embracing vulnerability, and others are saying, wow, how brave. So the other side of this is also looking at, why do we react that way? And the societal handshake certainly has a big role to play in it. But also, I think a lot of us wish that it was different. I think that in the day and age that we are in, we wish that it was inherently safe, that we felt inherently safe being ourselves. And that's what's so sad to me about hearing from others that what I'm doing is brave. It's the flip side of saying what you're doing is inherently dangerous. And I am afraid to do something like that. I admire you for it, but I'm afraid of it. So I started to think to myself, I've said this to other people plenty of times. I have definitely looked at somebody who's put themselves out there, who's trying something different, who's vocal, who is visible, and think, wow, they're so brave. And it started to get me thinking, like, what makes me feel that what they are doing is brave? And what stories have I told myself that reflect back on their behaviors and say, wow, that's scary, that there's risk there? It's almost as if the admiration of telling somebody that they are brave is actually a mirror. And what it's doing is actually pointing us towards something we wish for ourselves, but just haven't had the courage to fight through that fear, to embrace the vulnerability and take, or enjoy, or engage in. Bravery is often in the eye of the beholder, not in the heart of one living it. Those who are doing quote unquote brave things are still doing it with fear. And I think that that's so eye-opening because it helps us understand when we look at someone and say brave, what is it that we actually want for ourselves? And to me, there's two types of bravery. There's the loud bravery, big visible acts, people quitting their jobs, moving across the country, moving to different countries, public speaking on important issues, putting themselves in incredibly, um, you know, putting themselves in incredibly fraught positions because there's very strong opinions on both sides, doing things that make people uncomfortable. And then there's the quiet bravery. And that's kind of what I think I'm doing personally. And I think a lot of us do on a daily basis. It's the small choices that we make. Getting out of bed after experiencing grief, having a hard conversation with someone we love, showing up again and again and again after failure. Love, even, is an act of quiet bravery, if you think about it. Because the opposite of love is sadness. And you can't have the depth of love without the depth of sadness on the other end, too. And so these daily choices that we make, that's also brave. That's also brave in a lot of people's eyes. And my bravery hasn't always looked cinematic. Sometimes it's just telling my husband how I'm feeling, in those scenarios when I've been in close to burn down and I've said, I feel like a husk of a person, like vocalizing my truth out loud perhaps is bravery. And this is a short episode today because I really just want to make sure everybody understands and that, listening to this, if you find yourself saying, wow, they're brave, I want you to take a step back and go, why? Why are they brave? And is that something I want for myself, but I just have been too scared or too afraid to try it or to do it? Because when you strip away the pedestal that we put brave on, bravery isn't always pretty or inspiring. or sometimes even voluntary. Sometimes bravery is just a necessity, what we have to do to keep going, even though others are saying there's risk or danger involved. The counterpoint to this is that even the necessity of doing it for yourself could be inspiring to others. I myself, I am not, or at least I don't think that I am a overly unique individual. I don't think there's anything special or different about me. I made one choice to start to talk, to put myself out there to help others. And that is what is inspiring people to say that I am brave. But maybe bravery isn't about feeling that fearlessness. Maybe bravery is just about moving forward even when you feel like you are anything but fearless. So when I find myself saying, wow, they're brave, I'm now kind of looking at it from the other side of that coin. And I had always been afraid of being visible. I had always been afraid of being vulnerable because I didn't want to be judged. When I started this podcast, I was deathly afraid that it would cannibalize my current business, that people would think differently of me because I was messy and I was going through shit and that I wasn't perfect, that I didn't live this cookie cutter suburban life that people want to believe that successful individuals always do. But I decided to do it anyway. And that's really what I want you to reflect on from this conversation is, when did you last feel that you were being called brave, but you didn't feel it inside? And what have you held yourself back from because you feel as if you need to feel courage, that you need to feel brave in order to be doing that thing? So much of the experiences that we embrace in life, we choose to embrace despite all potential repercussions. And I really want to invite you to sit with this idea that bravery isn't always about being seen. Sometimes it's about surviving what others can't see. So I do appreciate everyone who has said that they think I am brave. And I want you to know that you're brave too. So I'm really curious to see what you think you're going to do now that you know this. And I think it's really inspiring to see how my bravery is inspiring others. So I'm going to try something a little different today. This is me sending out a challenge to those who finished this episode, who've listened to this whole episode. I would love to hear from you. I would love to hear in comments, in reviews. You can email me, sam@thephoenixtable.com. I want to know what you're going to do now that we've reframed this idea of bravery. It can be loud, it can be quiet. But my challenge to you is to look one fear in the face and say, I am scared, but I'm going to do it despite of being scared. Because that, my friends, is true bravery. And know that others are watching and will feel so inspired by you. And that chain of events of inspiration and showing others it's okay to show up as themselves, to be authentic, to do things despite feeling vulnerable, that is what our world needs right now. So I'm really looking forward to hearing from you. Thank you for joining me on the Phoenix Table. If you enjoyed today's episode, please like, review, and subscribe, and make sure to share this story with someone who might need to hear it. Remember, we rise better together.